I'm Joan Landis, and I'm glad to be with you again today. So today we're just going to touch on suicidality. Again, if you personally are feeling suicidal, if you feel like you want to end your life, if you want to try to end your life, that you need to make a suicidal gesture or attempt in order to get the help that you need, Suicidality is not appropriate for you. You need to call crisis line, you need to call 911 immediately, get some support, get some professional intervention, because suicide is never a solution to the problem, okay? I don't care how much pain you're in, suicide is not the way to solve it. As long as you're breathing, there's hope. So that is very important to understand. If you are actively suicidal or even thinking about it right now, you need to get off this right now and call 911, call crisis line, call a friend, make sure that you are not alone by yourself. So there it is. Now, let's just talk about suicidality so that we can understand a little more about what to look for, how it works, in case maybe there's somebody in your world, in your circle, that you're wondering about, you know? Again, the very best thing, if you're wondering, the very best thing is to get a professional assessment by a physician and or a mental health professional. So that is the very best thing to do. So some things to look for are, if they voice things, if they say, I'm thinking about death. If they have a preoccupation with death, with dying, if they're saying things are hopeless, they feel worthless, they're in a lot of pain, they just are in a lot of anguish, they don't know where to turn, they don't know how to get out of it, that it seems like that it goes on forever, it never gets better. And if someone is in physical pain, that's kind of a risk factor. If someone has gone through a life transition, and the life transition itself can be upsetting, but especially transitions that have to that increase the stressors or decrease prestige and empowerment. And so, for instance, a middle-aged white guy retiring actually is quite a high risk for suicide, because they've gone from really the highest prestige in society to now a quite a bit lower one. And they feel disempowered, disrespected, meaningless, hopeless, like they're not contributing. Another population that we need to really look at is Native Americans. They seem to have a higher rate than a lot of other populations. So that is one to look at. And it seems like that people who are more individualistic, that kind of pull themselves up by the bootstraps, those people can sometimes be at a higher risk too, because they feel like, hey, it's up to me to solve my problems. I'm not going to reach out for support. I'm not going to reach out for professional intervention. And not only that, but I can take care of my own issue by, ending my life on my own. And so people who are highly individual like that tend to sometimes think in those terms. There's kind of what we call the suicide belt in the United States that seems to go through the Intermountain West, and there's a lot of conjecture about why that is, and we don't know exactly why. Certainly some risk factors are clinical depression, life stressors, situational stressors, extended bereavement. Sometimes that's just really hard. Also, if there's been a suicide in your circle of friends or family, that you are about 9 times more likely to complete suicide on your own within that next year. So if you know someone who has had someone that they know end their life, be very, very vigilant about them, because it tends to feel a little contagious, especially to teens. And so that's an important thing to look at. Drug use is another risk factor, because when they just get hopeless, they just use a lot of drugs and it can end their life. Another one is if you've been incarcerated, if you've been in jail, that puts you at a higher risk of suicide also. So those are just some general risk factors, and there are others, but those are things to watch for, is just kind of populations that seem to be at risk. Now let's talk about specific indicators. So if the person is, voicing the hopelessness, voicing the depression, voicing that there's anguish they can't get out of, they feel trapped, maybe they're giving away their possessions, maybe they're, making plans for afterwards, that they talk about other people who have ended their life in terms like, oh, I wish I could do that like them, and also, if someone is into a lot of dark culture things, that can be a risk factor, and that may mean that they are pretty depressed and are struggling to connect with their more tender feelings, that they're trying to just express rage or fury or hopelessness, or that existential cry in the dark. So if you know someone that's way into the negative, dark parts of the culture, be mindful of that. And so that, if they voiced it, then that's really important. Then what do? Okay, so the main thing is, we don't want you to overreact and really do something that will make that person regret that they confided in you. Now, you do need to take care of business. You do need to keep people safe. But the emotional reaction when you hear this is very key. And so you need to just listen and go, wow, I had no idea it was this tough for you. That just sounds really, really, really bad. Can you tell me more about what's going on for you? And see if you can just, get them to, see if you can elicit more of their emotion. Make it safe for them to do that. And if they have, especially if they have specific plans, like, I've decided this is the way I'm going to do it, or, I'm collecting stuff in order to do it, or I'm making arrangements in order to do it. This is very, very important. If they're to the point where they're actually making plans, then you don't mess with that. They need to be seen by a professional, and they need to get the support that they need. At a minimum, they are not left alone. But if someone is determined to end their life, it doesn't matter if someone's with them. They can figure out how to end their life. And so do not take this responsibility on yourself. If somebody is making those noises, please get them the support they need. And that will, I'm sure, be would likely be, with the medication and counseling and probably group therapy and things like that to keep them much more safe. So we need to take suicide very, very seriously. It's an interesting thing that men actually complete suicide at a much higher rate, about 3 to 1, than women do. But women make more attempts, okay? Men tend to choose things that are much more lethal, and they don't have to try too often. Women tend to choose things that are a little bit less lethal, and so it may not actually result in a death. So what are protective factors? Protective factors are the things that actually make it so you're like, yeah, I'm in pain. That person says, I'm in pain, but I really would never actually kill myself. Why? What are the protective factors? And that's something that if you can kind of tease that out of them, that might be an important thing to remind them of. Now, you are not being a therapist, you're not being a clinician, you're just being a supportive associate, okay? But that may be something useful, is, to ask them, so why is it that you actually haven't ended your life yet? What keeps you from doing that? And they might tell you, they might say, oh, I don't want my family to find me. I don't want God to hate me. I don't want to mess up and be crippled my whole life, whatever it is. And if we can focus on the protective factors, it's like, you know what? that, there really are people that love you. There really are people that need you, and your pet needs you. I mean, sometimes it's something as simple as that to keep someone, willing to fight the good fight for a little longer. And so, again, your role is not to be the therapist. Yours is just to be a supportive listener. Don't overreact with lots of emotion. Just say, wow, we need to take this seriously. I'm so glad that you told me. This is way above my pay grade. This is life and death issue. We need to get you seen by a professional and get you the support that you need to get you over this bump. And that's something too that you can kind of gently suggest to them is, you know what? A lot of people have the same feelings as you. A lot of people do. And it doesn't have to last forever. And you can meet people who were actively suicidal and now they're so grateful that they didn't do something rash. And so, offer them hope that this pain or this angst will not last forever. And as long as there's breath, there's hope for the future. So again, if you are suicidal, do not spend your time here on Suicidality. You need to be in the hands of a professional and make sure that you get the support that you need. If you are suicidal, call 911 or your local crisis line immediately and get that going for you. That's the best thing you can do for yourself and for any friends or associates that have these same issues. All right, it's great. It's been good seeing you. If you want to get on the forums and talk about questions you have, but again, we are not a crisis line. We are not crisis counselors. We are not even, Suicidality is not even counseling, okay? Suicidality is just psychoeducational. It's just information for you. And so if you want more information, get on the forums and we'll try to, do a little bit for you. But really the best thing is to access any resources that we might have listed and things on the web. So there you go. Now you know more. Thanks. Bye-bye.